Hello, and welcome to Communicate to Lead, the podcast that empowers leaders and aspiring leaders to communicate with clarity and impact. I'm Keely Belton, CEO and successful entrepreneur, and your host for today. I'm here to equip you with all the essential tools and strategies to master effective communication and lead your team to success. As the founder and CEO of The Tailored Approach, my goal is to empower you to be the best leader you can be. So sit back, relax, and join me in today's episode as we dive into the art of communicating like a true leader. Have you ever left a crucial leadership conversation thinking, I wish I had said that differently? Or worse, have you ever avoided an important conversation or discussion altogether because you weren't sure how to approach it? The reality is that communication challenges in leadership aren't simply personal frustrations. They impact team performance, organizational success, and your effectiveness as a leader. Every day, important conversations are either postponed or poorly handled, creating ripples that affect everything from employee engagement to bottom line results. Why am I sharing this with you? Because today we are tackling one of the most crucial leadership skills, how to navigate your most important conversations with clarity, confidence, and credibility. Welcome back to Communicate to Lead. I am Keely Belton. And in the next 20 to 25 minutes, I'm going to share with you a practical framework that changed the way I approach high-stakes leadership conversations, and I believe it can do the same for you. So let's start by understanding what makes a conversation high stakes. It's not just about delivering bad news or asking for a promotion. High-stakes conversations are those moments that can shift the trajectory of your team, your project, or even your career. Think about that conversation where you need to challenge an executive's perspective, address underperformance with a talented team member, present a controversial idea that could transform your organization, or navigate a sensitive political situation. These are the moments that define us as leaders. And the truth is, most of us were never taught how to handle them. That's why I developed the Leadership Conversation Framework, which is built on three essential pillars: clarity, confidence, and credibility. Let's break each one down. First, before we get into the three pillars, let me share something I've observed after working with hundreds of leaders. We often think the stakes are high because of what we're discussing, but actually, it's about what's at risk. It's about trust, influence, relationships, your reputation as a leader. That is what is at risk. Think about your last high-stakes conversation. Maybe your heart was racing, your palms were a little sweaty, or your mind was racing with all the possible ways things could go wrong. That's because your brain recognizes something crucial. This moment matters. Let me paint some scenarios that every leader faces. Imagine Mary, a brilliant technical lead whose team is falling apart because she can't communicate effectively with other departments. I mean, her expertise is unquestionable. Nobody denies that. But her communication style limits her impact. That's a high-stakes conversation waiting to happen. Or think about Marcus, who needs to tell his leadership team that their pet project, the one they've been working on for over a year, needs to be completely restructured. His data is solid, but the politics, that's where the stakes get high. Or consider my own experience. I once had to challenge a boss's vision in front of our leadership team. I knew I was right, but I also knew that how I handled those 10 minutes would define my career trajectory. Here's what makes these conversations truly high stakes. Number one, what I call the ripple effect. Your words will impact not just the immediate situation, but the relationships, team dynamics, and future opportunities. Number two, the time pressure. Unlike regular conversations, you often can't say, let me get back to you on that when you are dealing with a high stakes conversation. Number 3, the power dynamics. Whether you're speaking up or speaking down the organizational chart, these conversations test your leadership presence. And lastly, number 4, the emotional weight. These conversations often carry personal significance for everyone involved, not just you. But here's what most leaders get wrong. They focus entirely on the words they use, the data they present, or the arguments they make. Well, these are all important. They do not determine success in high-stakes conversations. What really matters is what I call your leadership presence, the ability to align 3 critical elements: your message, what you're communicating, your mindset, how you're thinking about the conversation, and number 3, your manner, how you show up in the moment. Let me give you an example. When Rachel, one of my clients, needed to advocate for her team during a major reorganization, she had all the right data and compelling arguments, but she was missing something crucial: the confidence to deliver her message in a way that would command attention and inspire action. This is where most leadership communication falls short. It focuses on techniques and tactics without addressing the fundamental truth. High-stakes conversations are won or lost in the preparation, not only the delivery. So if you don't prep well, your delivery is probably not going to go well. And that brings us to the framework. In the next section, I'm going to share with you the exact process I use to prepare for and navigate these crucial leadership moments or conversations. But before we dive in, I want you to think about a high-stakes conversation you're facing right now or that you faced recently. Keep it in mind as we work through this framework together. Now, we're getting to the heart of what makes or breaks high-stakes conversations. Let's dive into the framework that can probably change how you handle these critical moments. And as I mentioned earlier, the framework consists of 3 pillars. The first pillar is clarity, and here's why it's crucial. In my work with hundreds of leaders, I've noticed that most difficult conversations go wrong before they even begin. Why? Because leaders jump in without absolute clarity on what they're truly trying to achieve. Before you walk into any high-stakes conversation, you need to be crystal clear on 3 things. Number 1, your intention. What's the real purpose of the conversation? And I mean the real purpose, not just what's on the agenda. Are you trying to build alignment, address a concern, or create a shift in behavior? Number 2, your desired outcome. What does success actually look like? Be specific. Better communication isn't an outcome. Team members actively sharing updates in weekly meetings. Now that is an outcome. Number 3, your stakeholders' perspectives. This is where empathy meets strategy. How will they receive your message? What's at stake for them? Really get clear so that when you walk into that meeting, you have all the information you need to do a stellar job delivering your message. Let me give you a real example. Jennifer, a senior manager I worked with, needed to have a difficult conversation with her top performer about their impact on team morale. Here's how she used the clarity phase. First, she got clear on her intention. She didn't want to criticize, but she wanted to help this valuable team member grow their leadership capabilities. Then she defined success. Success for her was a shared understanding of the issue and a collaborative plan for change. Finally, she considered her team members' perspective, their pride in their technical excellence, their potential fear of criticism, their career aspirations. Here's a quick exercise I want you to try right now. Before your next important conversation, take 5 minutes to write down your answers to these questions. What do I want to achieve? What does the other person want? What might be getting in the way? And lastly, what's the emotional subtext I need to consider? Really get clear on these questions. Take 5 minutes. By simply doing that, you are already far more prepared going into that conversation than you would have been if you did not consider any of these 4 questions. Moving on to the second pillar, which is confidence. And I can hear you already thinking, oh, great, another just be confident pep talk. But that's not what it's about. True confidence isn't about being the loudest voice in the room or having all the answers. It's about being grounded in your message and your value as a leader. Here's what most people get wrong about confidence. They think it's something you either have or you don't. But confidence in leadership conversations is actually a skill you can develop, like any other skill. Let me share a technique I call the leadership anchor. I use this before every high-stakes conversation, and I've taught it to many leaders who worked with me. And here's how it works. Stand in what I call your power pose. This isn't about dominating the room. It's about taking up the space you deserve. Plant your feet firmly. Push your shoulders back. Hold your head high. Then take 3 deep breaths, not quick, shallow breaths, but really deep belly breaths that activate your parasympathetic nervous system and calm your body's stress response. Then remind yourself of a time you handled a difficult situation well. It's not about positive thinking. It's about anchoring yourself in your proven capabilities. If you can think back to a difficult situation that you handled well, use that as proof that you have done it already and that you can do it again. And then lastly, focus on your intention to serve. You are there to serve your team, your organization, your mission. This shifts you from self-focus to purpose focus. And that is what I call the leadership anchor. Try that out and let me know how that works for you. Okay, moving on to the final piece or pillar of the framework, which is called credibility. This is where many leaders focus all their energy on the facts, the data, the logical argument. But here's what I've learned over the years. Credibility is built before you even open your mouth. It's built through consistent follow-through on commitments. Do what you say you'll do every time. Active listening that makes others feel heard, not just waiting for your turn to speak. Balancing confidence with humility, being strong enough to admit what you don't know and being okay with that. And lastly, using both data and stories to make your point. Numbers convince and stories persuade. I learned something powerful from someone who mentored me in my early 30s. He told me, credibility isn't about being right. It's about being reliable, being real, and being ready to learn. And I have taken that with me ever since then. So here's the magic of this framework. When you combine all 3 elements, clarity, confidence, and credibility, you create what I call leadership resonance. It's that quality that makes people lean in when you speak, that makes them trust not just your words, but your judgment. So let's get practical about how this framework comes to life in everyday leadership situations or conversations. Because while every conversation is unique, there are common scenarios we all face. Let me show you how to apply these principles in different contexts. First, let's talk about the pitfalls that can derail even the most well-prepared leaders. The first one is what I call the urgency trap. Basically, rushing into conversations without proper preparation because it can't wait, thinking that it has to happen right now. I recommend you take some time. The second one is what I like calling the emotion blind spot, focusing so much on content that you forget about the emotional impact. Number 3, the expertise shield, hiding behind data and forgetting the human element. So many of us are guilty of doing that. We focus on the data, we focus on the numbers, we focus on the statistics, and we forget that we have real human beings who are being impacted. And lastly, the assumptions game, not validating your understanding of others' perspectives. You take your understanding to be truth. Instead of testing it, instead of asking people, hey, this is what I think, what is your impression? Or tell me what you think. Okay, now let's look at how to apply these 3 pillars in 4 different types of high-stakes conversations. The first one, giving tough feedback. When you need to address performance issues or behavioral concerns, here's how you focus on clarity, confidence, and credibility. Clarity. Get specific about the impact of their actions. Confidence. Lead with care, not criticism. That's how you win them over. And lastly, credibility. Bring concrete examples and a clear path forward. So for example, instead of saying your communication needs improvement, rather try, I've noticed that in our last 3 team meetings, your messages about project deadlines weren't clear, which led to some missed deadlines. Let's talk about how we can address this together. The key in giving tough feedback is to start with specific observations, connect behaviors to impact, offer partnership in finding solutions, and end with clear next steps. The second conversation is presenting controversial ideas. Ooh, this one's a tough one. This is where many leaders either come on too strong or dilute their message too much. When you are pushing for change or you are challenging the status quo, keep the following in mind. Clarity. Know your non-negotiables versus your areas of flexibility. 2, confidence. Acknowledge valid conversations while maintaining your vision. Credibility. Come prepared with both data and impact stories. Don't do one or the other, do both. If you are trying to win people over, get them buying into your ideas, you want to arm yourself with a lot of information and you want to come with an open mind and show them that you are willing to hear them out. When you're communicating with your audience, don't say, this is the only way forward and we need to make these changes immediately. Rather go with, I've analyzed our current approach and identify an opportunity that could increase our efficiency by 30%. While it involves significant changes to our current process, I'd like to walk you through the data, address some potential concerns, and discuss how we might implement this in phases to minimize disruption. So when presenting controversial ideas, remember to acknowledge current successes before suggesting changes. Present both benefits and challenges, and have a clear implementation plan. And finally, show you've thought about the risks. And the third high-stakes conversation when we're negotiating for resources. When you are advocating for your team or for a particular project, it's about more than asking for more budget or headcount. Here's how to use clarity, confidence, and credibility. Clarity, link your requests to organizational goals. Confidence, know your bottom line. Be really, really clear on what that is. And lastly, credibility, present multiple scenarios with a very clear ROI. The key phrase here is, by investing in X, we can achieve Y, which supports our organization's goal of Z. Make it clear, make it concise, make it compelling. And lastly, managing up as the final high-stakes conversation. This is all about the art of influencing those above you without undermining authority. When you need to influence those above you, here's how clarity, confidence, and credibility comes into play. With clarity, you want to focus on solutions, not only problems. Regarding confidence, you want to position yourself as a strategic partner. You are in this together. And then lastly, credibility, always come with options, always come with solutions, not just the issues. Offer up solutions, give them more than one solutions, and tell them your recommendation and why. So here is an approach you can try. I have identified 3 possible solutions to this challenge, each with different trade-offs. I'd like to share my recommendation and get your perspective. And lastly, keep this in mind. The power of this framework isn't in using it perfectly. It's in using it consistently. Master one type of conversation first, then expand to others. I have just talked you through 4 different conversations. If you don't remember, go back to the episode, re-listen the 4 conversations, how clarity, confidence, and credibility plays out, and choose one of them. Practice that, try that out, do that more than once until you feel a little bit more comfortable. And here's a quick tip I always share with my clients. Before any high stakes conversation, ask yourself the following 3 questions. What's the one thing I must communicate? What's the one thing my audience must understand? What's the one action that must result from this conversation? The real magic happens when you make this framework your own. It's not about following a script. It's about internalizing these principles so they become natural in any conversation. So let's bring this home with 3 key takeaways from today's episode. High stakes conversations are opportunities, not obstacles. Preparation isn't just about what you will say, it's about how you will show up. And finally, the framework only works if you use it consistently. So here's your challenge for the week. Identify one important conversation you've been putting off. Use the framework we discussed today to prepare for it. Then take action. Try it out. See what works for you and leave the rest. I would love to hear how it goes. Share your experience with me on LinkedIn or Instagram using hashtag Leadership Conversations. Each week, I'll feature the most inspiring stories in our community spotlight. You can find the links to my LinkedIn and Instagram in the show notes. And if you found today's episode helpful, please share it with another leader who might need this message. That's how we continue building our leadership community. Until next time, my friend, I am Keely, reminding you that great communication is the foundation of inspiring leadership. Keep learning, keep growing, and remember to communicate to lead.